Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Conference Championship Weekend episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. Just to recap how the divisional weekend went, it did not go well. 2-5-1 for minus 3.21 units. Got the push on the Eagles thanks to some CLV instead of the loss, which you would have got a loss if you bet the closing number. But that brings my playoff record now for this year's edition of the NFL playoffs to 8-11-1 minus 2.54 units. What I'm going to do in this episode is I will give my favorite bet on a side for both the AFC and NFC championship. I'm also going to give out my favorite player prop for each team instead of just for each game. So 2 player props each game. That'll bring us to a total of 6 bets for Conference Championship Weekend. But before I get into those picks, I do need to wave the white flag. I have gone all season, really since probably a third of the way through the season until now, being anti-Chiefs. I was a Chiefs hater. I listed stats about why they're not as good of a team as their record indicates, and I obviously bet against them last week. I took the Texans on the money line. That did not work out. I've been fighting with Chiefs fans all season long on social media, but it's time for me to, and not just with the Chiefs, but this is kind of what pushed me over the edge. It's just time. I think it's just time for me to lay down my sword going up against these Chiefs fans. Number one, I think I just need to admit that there is more than just stats and analytics that goes into handicapping games. I can't rely solely on that. It has helped me pick out quote-unquote fraudulent teams in the past. It did not work this year. I don't think it's going to work for the Kansas City Chiefs. They just have something about them that leads them to continue to win close games, to win games where the box score shows maybe they weren't quite deserving of the win, but there clearly is something that I can't quantify that the Chiefs have. I went on a pretty big tirade on Twitter this past weekend about the refs, and I think maybe I'm wrong. I think a lot of non-Chiefs fans agreed with me when I was saying that it was a one-sided ref show, and not saying the NFL is rigged. I'm certainly not saying that. I'm certainly not saying the NFL tells the refs to favor the Chiefs, but I'm saying in this performance, despite the Chiefs still deserving the win because they did, 8 sacks, 9 sacks, something like that. They were able to get the Texans out of scoring range a handful of times for the most part, keep them out of the end zone. The Chiefs certainly deserved that win, but I still thought it was a one-sided ref show, and I think Patrick Mahomes is turning into an unlikable player based on his flops out of bounds, his ability to draw penalties. The roughing the passers on them were ridiculous. There was a lot of non-calls that should have gone on the Chiefs. There were calls that I didn't think were penalties that were called against the Texans. But I went to war with not only Chiefs fans, but also coworkers of mine who are Chiefs fans. I used to write for Fansided. Fansided started with Arrowhead Addict, which is a Chiefs fan website. So a lot of my coworkers from the Fansided side of things are Chiefs fans. I got in arguments with them. And I just got to put down my sword. Apparently, you can't say that the refs ref poorly or you're being a whiny crybaby, and I don't want to be a whiny crybaby. And I think this is it does go back, and this is why I'm going to generally wave the white flag on calling teams fraudulent, which has kind of been something that I've done in not just the NFL and the NHL as well. For the past number of years. I think it does kind of turn my Twitter timeline into me being negative all the time. It feels like I'm always being a contrarian. It feels like I'm always finding ways to say why some teams aren't as good as the public perception. And I think it does kind of come off as negative. I think it does come off as whiny at times. So I think I'm going to take a step back from fighting the front lines and trying to point out fraudulent teams. I think it rubs some people the wrong way, and I don't want to do that. I think when I do it, I think a lot of the time I'm being tongue-in-cheek. I'm being a little bit sarcastic with it. I think that doesn't necessarily come off as clear as I thought it was, and I rubbed some people the wrong way this past weekend. So I think moving forward, I think I'm just gonna be a little bit more positive on my Twitter timeline. Maybe I'll just be more of a generic sports media guy where everyone is great, and I won't speak poorly about the refs anymore. I've been told very clearly the refs have no outcome of the game. I was even told in that Chiefs game that a lot of Chiefs fans that the refs were completely fair and it wasn't one-sided whatsoever. And it was a great call by the refs because the guy who the NFL pays to be the rules analyst went on like NFL Network the next day and said the refs actually got every call right. Surprise, surprise. So it actually, my eyes actually were actually wrong. Actually, what I was seeing with my own eyes was actually incorrect. It is actually a very fairly reffed game, and I'm just being a whiny crybaby for saying otherwise. So yeah, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to start to try to be a little bit more positive, maybe just a little bit more generic sports media guy on Twitter where I just praise everyone and everything, and the Chiefs are the greatest football team of all time, and yeah, I wave the white flag. It's not a battle I want to take up anymore because it's exhausting. It's exhausting getting nonstop replies in my mentions, calling me clown, an idiot, crybaby, sore loser, don't know ball, don't deserve my job, this, that, and the other thing, not only in replies, but in DMs. It's enough. And it's something I've gone through every single NFL year because for some reason I have made it my yearly goal to try to point out the fraudulent team in the NFL. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. It's not enjoyable for me anymore. It's just stressful. So congratulations to the Chiefs. Big win for the Chiefs. They deserved it. I'm looking forward to the Chiefs winning this weekend and then winning in the Super Bowl and pulling off the first ever team to achieve a Super Bowl three-peat. But I am looking forward to this weekend's conference championship games. I do want to say it is interesting. I did feel the other three games outside of the Texans and the Chiefs that the better team actually, or I don't want to be negative and say one team is better than the other. In all three games, the team that I felt generally played the better game of football ended up losing because it came down to turnovers. Rams had a -2 turnover differential. I thought that was, a lot of people actually thought the Rams deserved to win that game. I actually thought the Eagles were slightly the better team, but the other two games for sure. Lions and Commanders that actually probably both teams actually thought played pretty similarly, but I mean a -6 turnover differential for the Lions isn't going to get it done. I thought the biggest discrepancy was the Ravens and the Bills. The Ravens gained 7.3 yards per play on the ground, ended up losing late in the game based on a dropped Mark Andrews 2-point conversion, but a -3 turnover differential, you just simply can't have that either. So turnovers to me were actually the story of the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Now, and a lot of people are actually bringing up that Mark Andrews lost that game for the Ravens. The Bills would have still had a minute and a half to go down and score just a field goal. And Josh Allen has proven it. Now, anything could happen. I mean, Josh Allen could have thrown an interception and handed it right back to the Ravens in field goal range. But it's not like that was the last play of the game where if they got that, it was going to go to overtime. A minute and a half is a lot of time to give Josh Allen to just march down and get into field goal range. So the Ravens lost that game by turning the ball over 3 times, all 3 times being pretty key situations when they turned it over. So good slate of games regardless. I am excited for Conference Championship weekend. We do have, it does kind of, line up where we have 3 of the top 5 teams still left, and then you have that one scrappy underdog. And it is always kind of fun to have a scrappy underdog in the Final Four, that obviously being the Washington Commanders. So yeah, we can get into the picks here, but I'm just to kind of summarize everything. I'm waving the white flag and going to war against fan bases, which I've done for a number of years. It's probably not good for anyone, including myself. And I don't want to be a negative Nancy and rub people the wrong way on Twitter, so I'm gonna stop doing that. All right, it is time to get into it. It is the conference championship round of the Bacon Bets podcast. Once again, I'm going to be giving out my pick on a side and a player prop for each team in each game. So we got 6 bets to get through. Let's dive into it. The road to Super Bowl 59 marches on.
No, Lisa. The only monster here is the gambling monster that has enslaved your mother. I call him Gamblor, and it's time to snatch your mother from his neon claws.
All right, let's get into it. The first of two games on Championship Sunday is the NFC Championship, NFC East battle. It is the rubber match between the Commanders and the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles won the first game. Commanders won the second game. Now some question marks surrounding that because Jalen Hurts went down late in the first quarter with an injury. Kenny Pickett came in. Kenny Pickett still played well, but a lot of Eagles fans do think that if Jalen Hurts stayed healthy in that game, they would have beat the Commanders. But this is a rubber match, and this is as high stakes of a rubber match as you can actually get, because obviously it can't be a rubber match would never be for the Super Bowl, because two AFC and NFC teams wouldn't face each other twice in the regular season. A divisional rubber match for the conference championship is as big of a rivalry game as you can have in the NFL. So this one's exciting. The line has shifted in this one. It actually opened Eagles -4.5. It shifted to 5.5. Which is actually where I bet it on Monday night. I placed my bets on Monday night. It is now, as of this Tuesday night, which is when I'm recording this, up at 6.5 at most places. Now it is 6.5, juiced to the Commanders, at least at FanDuel I'm looking right now, +6.5, -120. Eagles, -6.5, -102. But when I said earlier in the intro, I'm waving the white flag, and part of that was I need to not rely on stats as much as I have, I think. Part of that is I'm actually going to take the Commanders, a team I've not bet on a lot this season. I got them at +5.5. If you're listening to this, unless the line moves back to 5.5, you do still have, or as of Tuesday night, you have 6.5s available, so you can actually get a better line on this than me. But I got +5.5, -105. I think there is an immeasurable factor to some teams. I think the Chiefs have it, and I actually see some sprinkles of that in the Washington Commanders, because usually what I would do is I'd come on here and I'd list off the stats, and I'd list off, the Eagles' top rushing offense going up against the Commanders' defense that's, bottom 5 in the NFL in most rushing stats, including opponent rush EPA. I would come on here and I would say Jaden Daniels played very well against some weaker secondaries, both in the Lions and the Buccaneers. But now he has a much tougher match in the Eagles secondary, which has been a top 3 secondary in the NFL since their week 4, week 5 bye week. And I would cite all those things and make the case that stylistically the Eagles should be able to win and cover this game. I would probably also make the argument that they've seen Jaden Daniels twice. They should be able to draw up a pretty solid defensive game plan against him. And that is why you should lay the points with the Eagles. Instead, I come to you a new man. Yes, the Eagles have some stylistic advantages. Yes, they have some defensive advantages. But the Commanders do just have that je ne sais quoi factor where, and this is, the biggest thing with the Chiefs, is that they don't shoot themselves in the foot in key moments. Jaden Daniels, no turnovers in the playoffs so far. I'm unbelievably impressed with him. I think there is now a legitimate conversation you can have that he is the best quarterback in the NFC. It's not just his ability to be mobile, it's his ability to be mobile at the right time. He does not make the mistake of other young mobile quarterbacks, guys who will, they get the ball in the snap, they look at their first read, and then all of a sudden they're get right jerky and they're trying to look for a lane to run. Jaden Daniels is very calm in the pocket. He chooses the right time to take off with his legs. He uses his legs to create more time for him inside the pocket. And on top of all that, he's an unbelievable passer, thrower of the football. He's accurate. He has a great deep ball. He is unbelievably impressive, and I'm done expecting regression from Jaden Daniels. Do the Commanders have a defensive issue when you stack up their defense with the Eagles' defense? Yes. And I'm not taking the Commanders' money line either. But I also don't want to lay 6 points against this elite Commanders offense that seems to, at least in the past handful of weeks, score basically every single time they touch the football. I do also actually want to bring up another point about the Eagles, which makes me nervous laying points on them, and it's something that cost them covering the spread this past week. Jake Elliott is the worst remaining kicker left in the playoffs, by far. He missed 2 extra points last week. Did he miss a field goal too? Jake Elliott has been horrific, especially from beyond 50-plus yards. That will lead to one of two things. Either he will continue to miss kicks this weekend, or the Eagles are going to go for it on 4th down in situations where maybe they shouldn't because they don't trust in their kicker. Having a kicker you don't believe in, I think, send some shockwaves throughout the team that you can't always measure as well. More so than just he's not going to kick as high of a rate of field goals as some other NFL kickers. So that actually does concern me about the Eagles as well when it comes to covering the spread. But the Commanders have continued to do all season. Previously, I would chalk it up to luck. I would chalk it up to variance. I would chalk it up to a lot of other things. Now I just think there is some immeasurable factors to teams who win games that maybe they shouldn't win, or at least be in games that they shouldn't be in. Things seem to go right at the perfect time for the Commanders time and time again. And I'm done betting against that factor. So I will take the points. I got them at plus 5.5, minus 105 with the Washington Commanders on the road in Philadelphia. And we will see what happens. In terms of who I'm actually cheering for, I didn't talk about this earlier. I wish the AFC game was first, because depending on who wins the AFC game is going to change my opinion about who I want to see win the NFC game, if that makes any sense. My dream matchup of the 4 remaining teams is the Bills and the Eagles. I think that's a very interesting matchup from stylistic style of football for both teams. The defenses of both teams, one being far superior to the other, but then one being a good running team, the other kind of being a good passing team. I think the Buffalo Bills and Philadelphia Eagles is the most intriguing matchup to me personally. But if the Chiefs win, then I want the Commanders to win, because I don't want to see a rematch of a Super Bowl from 2 years ago. Last year was a rematch of a Super Bowl from 4 years ago. I don't want this year to now be a rematch. Let's get some new teams in the Super Bowl. I need one of the two teams to be a new team. So if it's the Bills that win the AFC, I want it to be the Eagles. I also, Commanders to be a very interesting matchup as well. The storylines with Jaden Daniels, that'd be great. I'm happy. If the Bills are in, I'm happy with everything. If the Chiefs get in, I want it to be the Commanders, because I want at least a little bit of a different storyline from the previous 2 years. And I think a lot of people might feel the same way. But you could also make the argument, if you don't want the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, then you'd want them to face the Eagles, because they would, in theory, prove to be the tougher challenge for the Chiefs. So, but my dream matchup from a fan base perspective would be Bills-Eagles. I no longer have any futures. My last future was on the Ravens, and they lost. So, all right, prop bets for the NFC Championship. I have one for Jaden Daniels here. I'm going to go Jaden Daniels over 21.5 completions. I'm surprised this number is so low, mostly because he has actually hit at least 22 completions in 8 straight games, not including Week 18. Obviously, you have to take out Week 18 a little bit, because he only played a half, I think it was at most, against the Cowboys in that meaningless game for them. So the last 8 games that he started and finished, Jaden Daniels went over 21.5 completions. He went over this number in both starts against the Eagles in the regular season. And I think when you're talking about game script, I think a lot of different paths lead to Jaden Daniels throwing the ball. Either number one, the Eagles get off to an early lead, then they're going to have to throw the ball to try to play catch up and match the Eagles offense. That should lead to a lot of completions. Or if it's a back and forth kind of slug it out kind of affair, I think Cliff Kingsbury is just going to continue to let his best player throw the ball. Their run game is not that good. Their best path to victory is throwing the football, and that will lead to, I think, plenty of completions as well. I think the only reason this bet doesn't hit is if the Commanders win in a blowout, which according to the betting market would be the least likely of the outcomes. Because then obviously if they're in a blowout, then we're going to just see them run the ball in the second half. And he will throw the ball a lot less. I'm surprised that not only is that 21.5, the over is only at minus 104. So this might be my favorite prop bet of the divisional round. I will go Jaden Daniels over 21.5 completions. Saquon Barkley, I got a bad number on this one. I bet this on Monday night. I don't know why I just didn't wait till I recorded tonight to place these bets, but I'm gonna fade Saquon Barkley. I got under 127.5 rush yards. You can get a better number already if you want to take the under. If you wanted to take the over, I guess you should have bet when I bet on Monday night. But let's take a look here. Saquon Barkley, his rushing yards total. Earlier today, I know there was a 131 out there. That has actually dropped now that I'm looking at it. The highest number right now is BetMGM. You can get under 130.5, minus 115. 128 DraftKings. FanDuel 125 is actually lower than what I got. So a little bit of discrepancy there. If you want to bet on Saquon Barkley rushing yards, even if you want to go over, certainly line shop, because there is a discrepancy across even the major regulated books, the FanDuels, the DraftKings, the MGMs, the Caesars. So take a look at that, but I'm going to be going under 127.5 rush yards. I just think this is too high. I could be wrong. I don't think in my life as a bettor, the past 12 years, I don't think I've seen a running back with this high of a total in a single game. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's some Derrick Henry games that were up there, but 127.5 is crazy. Now, I'm not saying he can't go over this number, because to be fair, he went over this number in both starts against the Commanders this season, but we got to think, if we're looking at this from a betting perspective, we got to look at it from a probability standpoint, and if you're going to bet the over on 127.5, then you think there's a better than 50% chance that Saquon Barkley rushes for at least 128 yards in this game. I don't think so. He could go for 115 and we'd win this bet fairly easily. I think the Commanders' defensive game plan, if they're smart, is going to be to stack the box and make the Eagles beat you through the air. Now, that's easier said than done. I'm sure there's a lot of other teams the Eagles have faced who have the same game plan, but that is worth saying. That should by far be the Commanders' game plan, because no team has been able to do it. And if the first team that is able to slow down Saquon Barkley will be the team that beats the Eagles. And also from a game script perspective, I do think the Commanders' offense is so elite and they're going to throw so many heavyweight punches at them. I think the Eagles are going to have to, at some point, turn to the pass. And if they do, that's where you could run into some trouble when it comes to Saquon Barkley's rushing yards total. So based on game script, based on game plan, I will take the under 127.5 rush yards for Saquon Barkley. That's it for the NFC Championship. Let's move on to the AFC Championship. I told you guys in the intro, I'm done fighting this fight. I've lost too much money going against the Chiefs, especially in the playoffs, especially when the odds in their games are close. Chiefs fans win. They have won me over. This is a team that continuously, despite being outperformed in a lot of areas, continue to find ways to win games. Patrick Mahomes on third down is unbelievable. I tweeted out, I think Monday I tweeted this out. Quarterback efficiency since 2021 on third down and fourth down, including playoffs. Patrick Mahomes is in a complete league by himself in the top right hand of that graph, with the y-axis being EPA per play and the x-axis being completion percentage above expected. It's unbelievable. I'm done betting on them. I'm done betting against them. I'm done making the case to bet against them. It doesn't matter. They will find a way to win the game, whether it's going to be third and 15, converting on first down, whether it's a couple key calls by the refs, whether it's the other team misses a field goal or the other team fumbles a snap, or a streaker runs on the field and hits Josh Allen in the knees with a baseball bat. One way or another, the Chiefs will find a way to win the game. So I will be taking the Chiefs minus 1.5. It's time for me to turn to the dark side. I've fought against the bad guys. I've fought against the evil empire enough. It is time for me to turn to the dark side and stop trying to stand up for the good guys. Stop trying to fight the bad guys. It is for me to join the bad guys. If you can't beat them, join them. And that is what I'm doing by betting on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I will say there is a pretty strong argument from a statistics standpoint that the Chiefs are the better team anyways. I would actually make that argument by looking at the Bills defense, which has been one of the worst in the NFL in the second half of the season since week 10, 22nd opponent success rate, 24th in opponent dropback EPA. I even told you last week against the Ravens got 7.3 yards per play against the Buffalo Bills, but then they turn the ball over 3 times. So what's the Bills' path to victory? Either they fix something on defense and they prevent Patrick Mahomes from moving the ball down the field, unlikely, or the Chiefs' offense turns the ball over 3 times, unlikely. So really, probably, the Bills' path to victory is to win in a shootout and Josh Allen has an A-plus game, which is possible. They also are going to want to have possession for the last 5 seconds, because a few years ago, they had possession and scored enough points to win the game with 13 seconds left, and that was too much time. So the last play of the game, not only will Josh Allen need to bring his A game, not only will the Bills need to score and outscore the Chiefs in what will be an offensive shootout if they want to win. Lastly, their final score might have to be the last play of the game. If they leave 2 seconds on the clock, it might be too much for Patrick Mahomes. Those are a lot of things that would have to add up for the Bills to win this game, in my opinion. So I will join the dark side and bet the Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, they'll be back in the Super Bowl for the 3rd year in a row and for the 12th time in the past 12 years, it feels like. But at least we will win some money when it happens. Chiefs -1.5, -115. There is a way I'm going to bet on Josh Allen, and this is a prop bet I bet on. Actually, I did Josh Allen rush attempts when they met in the regular season, and that hit. I'm going to go over rush yards in this one. I didn't see rush attempts. Actually, let me see if that's posted yet. I hope it's like 5.5. 9.5, yeah. That's funny. I went back and looked, and actually let me double check. Let me see if I can. That was week 10 player prop countdown. No, it wasn't week 10. Week 11, here we go. I believe his rush attempts was 5.5. It was 6.5, sorry, 6.5. It is now at 9.5. Don't like rush attempts over 9.5. I would instead rather go with his rush yards, which is what I'm doing. Josh Allen over 46.5 rush yards -120. This is one that I don't actually think. This line has moved in my favor, I believe. What is his rush yards at now? There was a 47.5 -115 at BetMGM available as of Tuesday night, so that would be your best bet if you're looking at the regulated market. FanDuel's up to 48.5, DraftKings up to 48.5, Caesars is up to 48.5. So you're only losing 1 yard of value based on where I got it at. I placed my bet at BetMGM. So if you're looking for the over on Josh Allen rushing yards, that's, as of tonight, the best place to bet it. We're keeping this one simple. Josh Allen in the regular season in his career averages 37.31 rushing yards per game. Josh Allen in the playoffs in his career averages 52.41 rushing yards per game. Josh Allen against the Kansas City Chiefs, both in the regular season and in the playoffs in his career, averages 56 rushing yards per game. So not only do we have an 18-yard increase from the regular season to the postseason, but then we have an almost 20-yard increase from the regular season to just playing the Chiefs in general. I don't know what it is. If it's he feels like the game is bigger, he feels like he has to outduel Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what exactly the reason is, but when Josh Allen faces the Chiefs, he takes off to run with his legs way more than in any other situation. So I will take Allen over 46.5 rush yards at -120. My player prop for the Chiefs, this one's a chalky one, but I do like it. You can go alternate receptions total instead if you'd prefer. But I'm going to go in Xavier Worthy over 4.5 receptions at -140. He has become the primary target for Patrick Mahomes in recent weeks. I don't think the betting market is correctly adjusted to that fact. He saw 9 or more targets in his final 3 regular season starts. He didn't play Week 18 against Broncos. And then last week against the Texans, he saw 6 targets and he hauled in 5 of them. When the Chiefs got DeAndre Hopkins there in the middle of the season via trade, they started using him as their primary receiver there for a few starts. That didn't really work out. And now Xavier Worthy has gone back to being their primary receiver. He's actually, based on a target share, by far the top pass catcher at the wide receiver position. Travis Kelce's obviously, and in the playoffs, going to make an argument for that. But for at least at the wide receiver position, Xavier Worthy is by far their number one guy. So I like him to go over 4.5 receptions at -140. So there you have it. Those are my picks. Just to quickly recap, in the NFC Championship, I'm going to go with the Commanders. I got it at +5.5, -105. As of Tuesday night, there are now +6.5s out there. You have to pay a little bit of juice. I think they're -120s at the 6.5 mark. But for my prop bets, I like Jaden Daniels over 21.5 completions, -104. I bet that at FanDuel. That's still available at FanDuel, and that's available. That's a wildly available number still on Tuesday night. Saquon Barkley, I have him under 127.5 rush yards. You can get a better number than that for sure, and it might be the case the longer you wait, the better number you might get on that if you want to go under. The AFC Championship, I got Kansas City -1.5, -115. Are there still -1.5s out there? BetMGM's -2. FanDuel still has a -1.5, -115. Caesars has a -2. Where's DraftKings at? Yeah, so there's still some -1.5s out there in Kansas City. Then for my prop bets for that game, I got Josh Allen over 46.5 rush yards, -120. The best you can get now is over 47.5. I still like it at that number. I like anything under 50, to be honest. And then I like Xavier Worthy over 4.5 receptions at -140. If you want to get a little bit more aggressive, you don't want to lay -140 juice, you can always go over 5 receptions. Which let me see if I can find what the over 5 receptions mark would be here. Xavier Worthy. I'm just going to look at FanDuel here. You can go 5+ receptions. That's actually a worse number because that's a FanDuel. You can go 6 or more receptions at +134 if you want to get aggressive with Xavier Worthy. All right, that is the show. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Next week, I will, at some point, it might not come out till Thursday, but at some point next week, I will do my Super Bowl episode where I'm just going to give out all of my bets for the Super Bowl. I got to look back to see how I did that last year. But I will talk side, I will talk total, I will talk a ton of player props. I'll also talk some exotic props. The week after next, I will be in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. If any of you listening are going to be in New Orleans, reach out. We'll grab a beer at some point, but I'll be there throughout the week. I'll then be going to the game as far as I understand. So I probably won't be recording this podcast. I'll be live from Radio Row with Stacking the Box all week. So I encourage you to check out Stacking the Box on YouTube and subscribe to that with my co-hosts Sterling Holmes and Cody Williams. That'll be fun. I'll be talking to Michael Penix, I think Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, and obviously a ton of other NFL players and former NFL players. Looking forward to that. That should be great. After the Super Bowl, I will be taking some time off from content a little bit. You'll still see my articles for golf and the NHL up on SI. And I believe starting with the Players Championship, the Bacon Bets podcast. I know at least last year I did Green on the Greens. I don't think I'm doing Green on the Greens this year. I think I'm just going to do my golf show through the Bacon Bets podcast, and I'll think about maybe I'll bring on Cody Williams or some other guests for that as well, or I might just do it individually, because at the end of the day, I do just selfishly and narcissistically enjoy ranting into a microphone by myself. So the Bacon Bets podcast will transition to golf picks once the football season is over, and I'll probably start that with the Players Championship. And then we got NHL playoffs, March Madness, all that good stuff. And I'll be moving to Toronto in March too. So last couple months in New York. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube. Rate and review the audio version of this podcast. Best of luck with Conference Championship Sunday. Gamble or bless, and I'll talk to you next week.